आर्थिक सहायता देने की घोषणा की है, लेकिन निश्चित रूप से इंटरनेशनल मॉनेटरी फंड से आने वाले $1 बिलियन के बड़े हिस्से को टेरर इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर को फंड करने में इस्तेमाल होगा, ऐसा मेरा मानना है। क्या यह इंटरनेशनल मॉनेटरी फंड IMF द्वारा, जो कि एक इंटरनेशनल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है, उसके द्वारा इनडायरेक्ट फंडिंग इसे नहीं माना जाएगा? मैं दुनिया के लोगों के सामने यह सवाल रखना चाहता हूं। इसलिए मैं मानता हूं कि आज के समय में पाकिस्तान को किसी भी तरह की आर्थिक सहायता टेरर फंडिंग से कम नहीं है। भारत यही चाहेगा कि IMF पाकिस्तान को अपनी $1 बिलियन की असिस्टेंस पर वह पुनर्विचार करे। रही बात पाकिस्तान की, तो उसकी बात ही क्या करूं आपसे। वह देश तो मांगते मांगते अपनी जहालत से एक ऐसी हालात में आ गया है कि उसके बारे में यह भी कहा जा सकता है कि पाकिस्तान जहां भी खड़ा होता है वहीं से मांगने वालों की लाइन प्रारंभ हो जाती है। अभी आपने सुना ही होगा कैसे वह फिर एक बार इंटरनेशनल मॉनेटरी फंड IMF के पास कर्ज मांगने गया। वहीं दूसरी तरफ हमारा देश है कि हम आज उन देशों की श्रेणी में आते हैं जो IMF को फंड देते हैं ताकि IMF गरीब देशों को कर्ज दे सके। ऐसी स्थिति में हमारा यह भारत है।
Defense Minister Rajnath Singh recently made a rare but stinging public remark against the International Monetary Fund, questioning its repeated bailouts to Pakistan while the country continues to fund, shelter and export terror. His statement wasn't off the cuff. It echoed a sentiment that's quietly building among global policymakers. Should the world's premier financial institutions continue supporting a state accused of destabilizing its own region? That question seems to have found its way into the IMF boardrooms, and the answer may no longer be business as usual. For decades, Pakistan has danced its way through economic crisis with short-term IMF lifelines, often defaulting on reform promises after dispersal. But this time, the world is watching more closely. Amid rising allegations of misuse of funds, lack of transparency in defense spending, and the flow of international aid into grey networks, the IMF has recalibrated its approach. So what's changed? Loan conditionalities have expanded beyond fiscal metrics to include compliance with FATF norms and auditable transparency in military control enterprises. There is increasing insistence on monitoring fund usage, especially after leaked reports hinted at diverted finances towards strategic, not civilian expenditure. An informal yet significant push is underway to link IMF funding with counter-terror cooperation and credible disarmament of proscribed groups. This shift suggests that for the first time, Pakistan's economic narrative is being filtered through a security lens. And that lens is unflattering. Amid this mounting scrutiny, Bilawal Bhutto Zardari, scion of the Bhutto dynasty, is on a self-fashioned global diplomatic tour, meeting think tanks, lobbying policymakers and pitching Pakistan as a misunderstood democracy. His mission seems oddly timed. While he attempts to paint Pakistan as a responsible international actor, the headlines back home scream otherwise. Rising insurgencies, shrinking press freedom, suppression in Balochistan, the near collapse of judicial independence, and an economy gasping under $130 billion in external debt. Worse still, Bilawal's diplomatic vocabulary borrows heavily from India's global playbook, talking of democratic resilience, inclusive governance, regional stability. But unlike India, which backs words with credible global partnerships and economic scale, Bilawal offers platitudes without power. What face does he really have to save? Especially when his own party, the PPP, has presided over decades of structural decay in Pakistan's federal cohesion, allowed radical elements to fester, and has failed to deliver on even basic governance in Sindh. His outreach appears more like a legacy rescue mission rather than a diplomatic offensive, and the world sees through it. While Islamabad attempts to project unity abroad, the voices from within are growing louder and bloodier. A newly released video by the Balochistan Liberation Army, or the BLA, delivers a chilling indictment of the Pakistani state, documenting alleged abductions and extrajudicial killings, exposing resource exploitation, especially in the Gwadar and Senda corridors, and calling for global recognition of Balochistan's independence struggle. This isn't a lone video. It follows a steady pattern. Over the past year, Baloch insurgents have attacked Chinese investments under CPEC, targeted security forces, and released footage in multiple international languages aimed at garnering global attention. The timing is calculated. Just as Pakistan seeks to court international sympathy, the Baloch narrative disrupts that effort by portraying Islamabad not as a victim but as a colonizer. The BLA's message is clear. There can be no unity without justice, no nationhood without consent. The convergence of events in Pakistan today isn't coincidental. It's the consequence of decades of dual play, touting democracy while nurturing terrorists, seeking development loans while diverting funds into opaque defense projects, and preaching peace while allowing groups like Jaish-e-Mohammed and Lashkar-e-Taiba to regroup under political facades. For years, the international community, especially Western powers, looked the other way. Geopolitical compulsions, Afghan war logistics, and the nuclear stability often bought Pakistan diplomatic leniency. But post-2021, global order is less forgiving. With the US out of Afghanistan, Pakistan's geostrategic leverage has shrunk. India's global credibility and lobbying clout has risen, and Pakistan's internal fragmentation, from TTP resurgence to Sindhi nationalism, is harder to mask. Rajnath Singh's comments weren't a one-off jab. They were a deliberate challenge to international system silence, and it's working. The IMF's tougher stance, Bilaval's strained diplomacy, and the BLA's raw messaging are all signs that Pakistan is being held to a new standard. The world is now asking, can a state that shelters extremists be trusted with bailout billions? Can a government accused of suppressing its own provinces be a credible peace partner? Can democratic credentials be claimed without actual democratic values? Pakistan must confront these questions, not with denial, but with change. Until then, the new normal may well be this: no more bailouts without accountability, no more diplomacy without introspection.